So let's get stuck in with some coding, or at least setting up our AI coding assistant, because that's what we're going to do next. I want to tell you all about something called Continue, which is an VS Code extension. There are a number of AI coding assistants available now: Cursor, Ada, GitHub Copilot. I'm going to focus on Continue. I'm on a journey of learning and discovery, and I've chosen this. It's open source. I can get it to talk to my Olama service, which is running, which can run various different models locally. Therefore, I'm not going off to the cloud, and I'm not paying. I'm not doing pay as you go on any of the large language models, the larger ones that are out there that are available: ChatGPT, Claude, Sonnet, Gemini, or whatever. I'm not doing that. I don't want to pay anything really. I don't have any money, frankly. So I just need to be able to play to my heart's content in on my own local environment with AI models. So what I've done, as you can see here, is I've got a PowerShell window pane open down at the bottom here, and I've typed Olama list just to remind myself what models I've got pulled from the open source community. And I've got one called Gwen 2.5 Coder, and I've got my 5.4 model that we've been talking about. I've got my embedding model as well, which we're going to use for the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation aspect of our app. So an important bit of config within Continue is config.json. So that lives at your user profile. So in my case, users richcowling.continue config.json. That file points Continue at your models, and importantly at your local models that can be run within Olama. There are two types of model you'll want: a tab autocomplete model and a chat model. A tab autocomplete model is something that's going to have to be small enough to run really quickly on tab to autocomplete your code, and also be good enough to provide you with decent results. So you'll need to sort of experiment with a few. I'm using Qwen 2.5 Coder. There's another one called Star Coder. There are a number of them which are trained to be, specifically autocomplete models. You can click through from the extension pane in VS Code to the documentation for Continue, and in there you'll find this section on autocomplete setup and that config.json file, and you can see how to modify it to use one of your local models. And here you can see a bit of the config for actually that Qwen coder model that I've got running. So let's cut and paste that from the documentation into our JSON config file. So we don't want that to be localhost. We don't want that to be HTTPS. We do want that to be 11.434. The rest of the config we can leave alone. This auto detect section is going to be really important, and that's the premium model we're not going to be using with the API key, so we'll ignore that. So that's the config. Now, before we go on to continue our exploration of this AI coding assistant, just a quick aside. This file here, chatclient.py, is an early bit of code that I got AI to generate. So way back, I used Gemini. I went to the Gemini app and I just said to Gemini, just write me a simple chat client to use with Olama and generate some code for me, please. It'll do that. It was a really simple prompt, and I've ended up being provided with a really simple bit of code, which is probably throwaway. Well, it is throwaway, but what it does is it serves to explain how I would interact with the 5.4 model programmatically using the JSON library in Python. And so it served to be a really useful reminder, because that's a key thing about this. I'm often not in the detail of coding anymore. I would say that 20% of software engineering or digital product delivery, when you're working at the big picture level within um, enterprise scale or national scale endeavors, 20% is coding, and there's so much more that I need to be concerned with in terms of getting the thing done, because again, I'm working at that big picture level quite often. So the details become a little bit blurry sometimes, or a little bit distant from me. I'm quite hands-on, yet often I can't be, because there's so much more to worry about and deal with across, team management, project management, product management, stakeholder engagement. There's a whole. The point is, rather than tapping a colleague on the shoulder who's more into the detail than me, or increasing my cognitive load by having to do the more detailed aspect as well as the big picture aspect, or rather than context switching quite a lot more, or moving my focus away from that bigger picture, I can now use an AI coding assistant. Anyway, I wrote this bit of code a while ago using Gemini, and it successfully will run and create a simple chat client for me to use. And I could, if I wanted to, I could run it under the debugger and I could explore what it does. But now I've got an AI coding assistant, I can also do something like this. I can highlight the bit of code. I can do Control plus L, and I can chat about this bit of code with the model that I've got, or one of the models. This is currently auto-detecting Llama 3, which is because it's got this auto-detect config over here. So I can now explain this code. Click Enter, and now it goes off to the model, and we get an explanation for that little bit of code. Whilst remaining relatively impoverished in terms of kit, and whilst remaining local, it is possible to improve the time it takes to get responses back. I've noticed when Continue is talking to Claude Sonnet, it will employ a prompt template to ensure that the prompt is focused and has clearer context. And so that will improve how it talks to Claude Sonnet. You too can do the same with your local models. So we can also use the AI coding assistant to refactor our code. So let's go over to a more interesting bit of code. So let's choose this chunk text method function, and you can see Control I is how we do this. Now we can tell it what we want to do. Refactor using a tokenizer. And then let's press this little button here to edit. So now we can see that the code is being edited by the AI. We'll get the option to accept or reject the change once the change has been completed by Continue. So now we can see there's red, that's the old version, and green is the new version. This integrates with Git, and so you can accept or reject. So we can accept that change.